Max Verstappen narrowly missed out on the 2025 Formula 1's Drivers' Championship in Abu Dhabi. He did win something else though, in this interesting season in the pinnacle of motorsport. He won the hearts of the Formula 1 fans. He was voted the People's Champion thanks to his no-nonsense attitude, his amazing skill and his astonishing fight back to the top. He was once the most hated man in F1, or so it seemed, but now he's the most popular driver out there. Let's find out how he changed people's minds, even the people in Britain. I got the idea to make this video when I posted something on my social media, which didn't get the response I expected. See, Lando Norris had the opportunity to win the title in Qatar, and I half expected Max Verstappen to go Mad Max on Norris and beat him after a controversial move in turn 1 from the Dutchman. So I posted, I have a feeling Max Verstappen will be the most hated man in Britain again today. I posted it on my Twitter timeline, threads and on my YouTube community page. Now, I know a lot of fellow Dutchies understood what I meant. That I was pointing at the British media always painting Verstappen as the villain and going out of their way to blame Verstappen for racing incidents. And obviously Team LH, who'd rather beef with us than watch their own driver struggle. I have to admit that I may have been living in 2021 still, when after the last race in Abu Dhabi, social media turned into a war zone. I got the feeling at the time that every single person in Britain hated Verstappen. That's how loud this group of haters was. As I noticed quickly in the reactions to my posts, Max Verstappen is hugely popular across the pond, and those people were a little offended by me judging a whole nation just because of this loud minority. So that's why I made this video. I made this video because Zoom 15,000 said, you should stop with the anti-British rhetoric. This idea that we all hate Max has always been ridiculous. Duly noted. Thank you for the inspiration. It's fair to say that Max Verstappen has had a rocky relationship with the media and the F1 fanbase in general. There were controversies at every turn, so it seemed. He entered F1 as a 17-year-old, which prompted the FIA to set up a whole new way of judging young drivers and whether they had enough experience to enter the sport. People said it was irresponsible and dangerous. Young Max didn't care, and he drove his little heart out. The boy knows no fear, Martin Brundle cried when Verstappen overtook Nasser in Belgium. He fought hard battles with a veteran like Grosjean, and people felt uneasy that this kid didn't show any respect to his older opponents. Verstappen refused to let Sainz by in Singapore, which was something unheard of, to just blatantly say no to a team order. It's safe to say the media already had a lot to say about Max Verstappen. He was treated a lot more harshly than the rookies nowadays. Verstappen got no hugs and didn't have a mentor, as Max does for all the rookies in F1 now. We'll talk about that later in the video. Then in 2016, Red Bull did Red Bull things. Daniil Kvyat scored a podium as a teammate of Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull team after Vettel left for Ferrari, but also torpedoed Vettel a few times, amongst other incidents that didn't look so good. So Helmut Marko demoted Kvyat and promoted Verstappen. The media frowned upon that decision and doubted whether Verstappen could do a better job than the Russian driver. Well, Max Verstappen won on his debut race for Red Bull. He became the youngest race winner ever. Maybe that angered the establishment a little bit too. How quickly they were proven wrong. Max grew impatient as he got used to the material more and more. The slow and unreliable Renault engine was frustrating him, and he started to push a little too hard at times. He had already built a reputation as being a menace to drivers trying to pass him, even if he was losing time in doing so. But it also caused a bunch of unnecessary incidents, which frustrated the world champions on the grid. He made Vettel scream in Mexico, and Lewis Hamilton called him a dickhead in the cooldown room after a scrap. At the time, Lewis Hamilton was declared holy, and this snot-nosed kid daring to fight His Royal Highness Sir Lewis Hamilton was a scandal. After crashing in FP3 in Monaco, Verstappen was asked why he had so many crashes, and he threatened to headbutt someone if there were more questions like that. I believe this was the lowest point in his career when it came to popularity. Not that he cared, but it's important for this video. Verstappen then decided to not try and lead every session anymore and became a lot calmer. And the results starting to show that. He only had one outburst when Ocon took him out in Brazil, which cost him a win. Other than that, in the following years, Verstappen fought hard, scored many podiums, a few wins, and all this time he waited to get the right package to win the title. Well, that happened in 2021. We all know how that went and how it ended. Because Verstappen was fighting Hamilton, the British media saw Verstappen as enemy number one. With the same media feeding the frustrated Hamilton fanbase, things got pretty toxic. Especially because they couldn't get a grip on Max. He kept fighting on the limit, and over the limit if needed, and he won the title. In the ground effect era, Verstappen was pretty much unstoppable, and that annoyed the fans too. He did gain a lot of support when he started having separate interviews after he received a punishment for saying fucked in the press conference. He became the rebel fighting the FIA, which is run by the second most hated man in F1, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. We all know who the most hated man in F1 is, right? When Verstappen didn't have the fastest car anymore in 2024 and was holding on to the lead against Lando Norris, his popularity grew under one group and he lost fans in the other group. The other group is the Lando Norris fan base. And finally in 2025, he fought such a fight that he overturned a huge deficit and nearly won the title. I'd say 80% of F1 fans were rooting for Verstappen to get it done. Unfortunately, he didn't, but he did manage to make the season interesting and he stole the hearts of many die-hard motorsport fans. What I always liked about Max Verstappen is his down-to-earth mentality, pragmatic to the bone, without hidden agendas. No fancy clothes, unless he has to, and you can tell the spotlight is actually something that is a necessary evil for him, rather than something he enjoys. In the paddock, this has been known for years, and I remember Martin Brundle saying that out of all the F1 drivers he'd picked Max to have a beer with, which I think is a great compliment. Everyone with a little bit of knowledge of the sport knows that the RB21, Max's car for the 2025 season, was troubled. It was visible in the free practice sessions, and many Fridays they knew the Red Bull team had to perform miracles to get the car into the right window for Saturday. Many times Verstappen surprised everyone by squeezing a pole position out of the car and even a few wins. All this time things were happening in the background at Red Bull, which didn't help the performance on track at all. Still, Verstappen managed to stay in good spirits most of the time, like he enjoyed the challenge of getting the car working again with the team. At the same time, he was heavily involved with his sim racing team, Team Redline, and his GT3 racing team, Verstappen.com. He earned a lot of respect for being this crazy about racing. He made a lot of motorsports fans happy when he conquered the Nordschleife and won his first race there. Those streams got millions of views, and it put endurance racing a little bit more on the map. It's a very pure form of racing, something that suits Verstappen perfectly. The world was delighted to find out that his partner Kelly was expecting and later gave birth to a healthy daughter. Slowly but surely, the F1 fandom started warming up to his personality once they got beyond what Drive to Survive had presented to them in 2022. Many times I read social media posts about how they used to hate Max Verstappen, but they liked him now. It was also maybe because Red Bull and Verstappen did get the car working somewhat better again, and Verstappen had an amazing run of form after the Dutch GP. I think a lot of McLaren haters wanted him to stick it to Zak Brown and Lando Norris and their stupid papaya rules. I'm sure that sentiment played a part as well, but I'm convinced everyone could see how passionate Verstappen is about racing, and his wins were all pretty special. And none of them were straightforward. As a 4-time world champion, he gets a lot of attention from the rookies on the grid. And Max is jokingly called the mother duck. Every driver's parade, every media session, whenever there's a moment, Kimi Antonelli, Gabriel Bortoleto and Isaac Hadjar are gathered around him, hanging on every word he says. Oliver Behrman spoke highly of Verstappen and his skills. It's clear he looks up to him. Max makes time for these kids as well, because, as I've said before, nobody looked after him when he was there as a teenager. Verstappen may have missed having a teammate on the grid for a few seasons now, but there are half a dozen drivers on the grid who would gladly help him with a tow in quali, and he returns the favour too, like with Alonso a few races ago. So coming back to how Verstappen rid himself of this negative image, it is probably because he stopped dominating and they saw how hard he had to fight for his results. Seeing the McLaren drivers and strategy team fumble so many races made us realise what we always took for granted when Verstappen was dominating. The world started appreciating the level of skill and perfection that was needed to win 19 races in 2023. So Max Verstappen is finally getting his flowers for his achievements. We close off this pretty decent 2025 season with a good feeling about Max Verstappen. He didn't win the title, but his fight back into contention was most impressive. The way he dominated that last race in Abu Dhabi and resisted the temptation to convert to all kinds of shenanigans is something the media noticed and were grateful for, I think. He lost the title gracefully. He hugged Lando Norris the same way Norris had hugged him a few years ago. In interviews, it was clear Verstappen wasn't disappointed and he genuinely felt proud of his team and happy for Norris. Max Verstappen made his race engineer GP emotional after the race with the words he spoke about him. GP reacted by saying, "I can still picture him coming in as a teenager. Man, that kid has grown so much over the years. I'm just so happy the season is over and I'm looking forward to going home." Well, they can all go home for a short winter break, knowing that Verstappen is the people's champion and he won the hearts of the fans. Even the ones in Britain. Subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei.